Hello,
Mm.
everybody.
Wait, I'm trying to retweet. Let's
Retweet.
see.
Retweet.
Anybody see the Lego Batman movie?
Yes.
It's pretty good.
No.
Yes. Awesome.
It
I
was
tried to do-
very. It was kind of like Transformers in that there's just so many things moving on the screen at once. I couldn't tell what I was looking at.
It was great, and I love all the in jokes, and I love the deep Batman history that's alluded to everywhere. It was great.
The condiment man.
The Condiment Man.
Important stuff, and then Nightwing references.
I don't know that one.
Nightwing. That's
Was that the suit he got dressed up in at the end?
the
Or was it
suit.
Robin
Yeah, the
was in?
suit that Robin got into.
Yeah. Okay. Is that from a comic series or something?
Oh God,
I'm sorry.
you can't. I mean, how do you not even know that?
I don't read comics. Like
Oh, well,
ever.
You should
Sorry.
probably read comics then.
No, I'm not going to start now. I'm sorry.
Really?
I'm not dissing anyone who does. I'm simply not. It's not something I'm going to prioritize.
You're not going to start.
I read
you-
Wikipedia to learn about the superhero that I'm interested in at any given point in time.
I don't like that.
I read the Reader's Digest version.
That's not how any of this works.
I know just enough.
Should I start doing these community links? I seriously have like 9,000 of them.
Shall we like introduce? And
You have
say
actually
hello?
9,000?
My
No.
audio just went completely messed
I
up.
have less than 30, but just barely.
Well, I would.
Fixed.
My feedback to you.
I did delete a bunch of them.
My feedback to you would be to do them slower. And
Yes.
don't try to like guess what they're
Right.
about ahead of time.
Yes.
You don't know what they're
Like,
about.
I read them all. I read
You
all
should-
these posts.
Get a
You have-
salient synopsis for every single
Oh
one.
my gosh.
Or
It
let
took a
me-
lot
or
of work.
Or let me do it, because you in the past you sometimes kind of like and then you try to read it fast. It's like when you go to Best Buy and you ask someone, does this TV have 4K, and they're like,
I
can
felt
really
like
go,
I
"It's
was
really
cramming
good."
for an exam today. I read all 30 of these things. It was
Okay.
Yeah.
all right, then blow us
Can we-
away.
Can we start
Oh
the
my
show
gosh.
first?
The show has been started.
This is the pre-show. Can we start the actual show?
It's just so bad.
Let's just start. Let's cancel the series.
Before we start, I would like.
I'm not in the chat. Hang on.
I think.
on.
Oh yeah, the chat.
I'm in the chat now.
I need to go to the chat too.
I'm
I
not
would
in
like
the-
to. I'd like to do. I would like to have more guests on that are not the three of us. I know that there's a bunch of new people who work for you all, and there's some young people who now sit nearby Damien. It'd be cool to have some of those people come on and just be around and chat. Is that cool, Damien?
Maybe. Okay. Maybe.
Just something
I don't
for-
have anyone new who works for me. Not
I don't
new,
know,
like,
just new people who aren't the three of us, because it's kind of like that Star Trek episode where they go back in time to the planet that's all mobsters, and they take over the planet, and the mobsters eventually realize that there's only like three of them, and they've been like, we got a whole ship back there, but no one's ever seen the ship. That analogy works perfectly if you remember Star Trek, the original.
I did entertain the idea of doing a walkthrough of the workspace for one episode. I just moved to my phone and like walk around and put people on their spot, just so that we could prove that it's not just me in this room who builds the product. Because
It would
obviously
be
that's
useful to know that.
yes. Sure.
Okay, I'll work with you about that later.
Yeah.
John, you have a new job.
I do have a new job, boss.
What is your job?
So I am the executive director of the .NET Foundation.
That sounds
Wow.
makes it sound like you're my boss now
That
too.
sounds
I know.
Whose boss are you? So we work for each other. Inception. Boss
Yes.
Inception.
It's
Does that mean
true.
that you technically own all the code now?
I guess so.
You
Well,
are the
I
executive- you are the
no.
executive
No.
of the foundation that owns all the code.
Well, see, I'm the executive director, which is the day-to-day manager, kind of, right? But there's actually a board of directors who must approve the things. There's all. So if you go to the .NETfoundation.org site, you'll see the whole structure. There's a board of directors. There is a technical steering group. There's an advisory group from the community. There's a lot going on. So.
And we got a bunch of new stuff like user groups we're trying to spin up, and speaker bureaus and GIFs and all kinds of stuff. So
tons of stuff, yeah. So and the whole, for people not familiar with it, .NET Foundation's goal is just, it's stewards and makes .NET open source awesome, right? So there's Microsoft contributed open source stuff, there is community open source stuff, and so just supporting and all that stuff. So.
Cool.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
You will do an
And
amazing job.
sadly, I am your boss again. That was tough. You had to actually accept that in order to get.
You know, good with the bad.
Yeah, exactly. You can't win them all.
Please make his life a living hell.
The worst part is just going through his expense reports. They're not as easy as mine.
Why is
Mine
that?
are, because mine.
What is he
just
getting
got
that's so
back-
complicated?
Well, I got back from South Africa,
Because
and
you live on Subway and Nando's?
mine say Nando's,
Yeah.
Subway, Nando's. And with his, it's just like fancy restaurants and stuff.
Oh yeah. But it's I apparently have some sort of .NET Foundation budget and stuff.
Ooh.
So
What are you
Yeah.
allowed to spend that on?
Meat,
wow. Yeah,
Meat?
just meat.
gourmet meats,
Yeah, it's very complex.
Protein,
Condiment
basically.
All right, John, share your screen and blow us away.
Let's do this. Okay, first, so I'm going to start with a few where we have more than one from one person. I try and group these by themes, by the way.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I've got 2 from David Pine.
Could
So
before we start, could you have more Chrome extensions running? Really?
Yeah,
You
I have
should
some
have seen
hidden.
the hell I put him through in the workshop in London at the amount of tabs and extensions that this man has. In
Maybe
Chrome.
run more things in the tray, John.
I'll do my best.
That would be
He has an
week.
entire cloud just to manage his extensions and tabs.
that.
I
I'm not
do.
even
amazing.
It's
How many
amazing.
gigs of RAM are those extensions?
Power of the cloud.
Not enough. I have unused gigs. That's, right? That means it's I'm
Gig
wasting
all
gigs.
the things.
Right? And it's all going to
Amazing.
streaming the calling here. Okay, David Pine, 2 from him. The first is on overriding ASP.NET Core framework provided services. So he talks about overriding logging, but what's kind of cool is he talks about how to dig up what the service provider is that you're looking for. So I'm going to jump to the end and page up a little bit to minimize on the scrolling. And so he's just talking about how to find out. He's like, you know, here's how I did it in this case. And he's like, the whole kind of approach is figure out which service lifetime, you need, figure out which service.
So if I could rephrase, he is attempting to effectively reverse engineer what implementation is used by default for any of the given abstractions that we added in ASP.NET Core, such as logging and configuration, by enumerating the service collection in order to determine the service descriptor for a given abstraction.
So, yes.
And then he is selecting those and then replacing it with his own implementation and ensuring it's the correct lifetime scope and that type of thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
John was going to say that if you'd let him.
Sorry.
I'll just crumple that page up and move on to the next.
Okay.
Another from David Pine. This one is on thread.current principle. So talking about, you may be familiar with thread.current principle in previous versions, and he talks about, some ideas of why that's not the best thing. Awesome. My screen is freezing up. It must be all the extensions I'm running.
Chrome is not responding. I think the cloud went down.
So clearly.
So maybe we're just having 2 links today. But he talks about, so issues of why it's not the best. If I jump again to the end and page up, he talks about using the HTTP context accessor and how to get at the claims principle and stuff. And Scott, at the very end, he even references an issue of, looking at thread current principle that you blogged about 13 years ago. So
I take full credit for this person's success.
Yeah. So I both of these great posts. I like how he goes through and explains kind of why he's doing something and his process of working through it. So cool post from him. Yep. 2 from Hisham.
Hisham is a beast.
He is awesome. Yes. And
good content.
And I realized I have misspelled and mispronounced his name a few times. So it's Hisham bin Ataya, and I've been saying Ayeta. So
we just call him Hishamko because that's
Hisham. There you go.
That's his GitHub alias. So
that works.
We know him as Hishamko.
Is he incorporated then?
Maybe I don't know, but his GitHub name is Hishamko, so that's what we call him.
Yep. Okay.
Could be.
So 2 from him. So 1, of course, he's been doing series on localization. So here's one on that. And the next is, I think this one's really cool. This is a log. He's doing a console provider to turn, if we look at this console output, and he basically is turning it into that. So he's just overriding and using a colorized console provider. So,
nice.
you know, just make it easier to see.
That is actually, you know, it sounds like you tease people about stuff like that, but honestly, I fought with the .NET CLI people for 2 or 3 months to try to get some coloring correct. So when you spend a lot of time at the command line, it's a joy to get it right.
Yeah. We did.
huge.
I mean, we did the work to. You can see the existing console logger provider. We do the colorization of the verbosity. So we do that. That's by default. But he's gone to the next stage and actually started colorizing like semantic parts of the messages themselves. And I'm guessing he's using like some pattern to do that. Like
He is,
he's
yeah.
finding SQL queries and he's finding URLs and like regexing or something.
It's regex based.
Okay,
Yep.
there you go.
Yep.
But that's kind of nice. It's like, we had to be very careful. Color coding at the console, unfortunately, is not cross-platform friendly. You have to do different things on different platforms to do it well. So we have had a bunch of issues there, which I think is what Scott was alluding to. And also, when you pipe the console because you have multiple processes in a chain, that can affect the console coloring as well. So it's actually a very complicated thing to get correct across all platforms. But it's great to see some extra context there.
Yep. Very cool. Okay, 2 from Andrew Locke. So he's always on top of it here. So here's one on exploring iStartup filter in ASP.NET Core. So he's gone through and done several on this kind of startup-based things. So here's one on that.
I love iStartup filter. It's a very little known
say more
thing.
on it, or?
So basically, iStartup filter is a way for you to have something in DI that will get called during, funnily enough, application startup. So basically, think of you can see it there, the configure method, which is what you usually see in your startup class. If you want to have something in the DI container that effectively has a configure method that gets called at the same time, that's what iStartup filter is. And so you can pretty much do anything that you would be able to normally do in the configure method, including affect the application builder sort of middleware pipeline, or configure a logger, or pull stuff out of DI to do those things. You use an iStartup filter to do that.
Cool. All right. And here's one about logging using diagnostic source and comparing that to event source. So explaining the different kinds of things you can get out of diagnostic source and how both of them hook into ASP.NET Core logging.
Yeah, and the one-liner there is that diagnostic source effectively gives you live objects that are called in line with the thing spitting out the diagnostic, whereas an event source is effectively a fire and forget, and it can only pass through somewhat structured primitive data. So diagnostic source, for example, when a request happens, you will get the HTTP context itself if you register a listener for that diagnostic source, and you can change it. You shouldn't, but you can. It's a live object. It's called synchronously in line, and we wait for your code to run before continuing. Event source is completely asynchronous, and we just fire off the event. We don't care who's listening to it. So they're very different systems for different reasons.
And performance-wise, I'd assume that diagnostic source would have a perf impact.
Yeah, because it's called in line. So
right.
It will cost whatever it costs for whatever listeners you have registered for that diagnostic source. So when you're building a diagnostic source listener, you want to make that as lightweight as possible. And also typically you put it behind a flag of some sort so that the listener isn't always active. It's generally only active in response to some other thing, configuration or environment or something like that, just like EDW. Okay,
cool. So here's a 3-part series from Rahul on middleware. So this is, he starts at the introductory level, just kind of explaining what middleware is, kind of starting there. And then he's got 2 follow-ons. So explaining methods available and then digging in a little bit into, let me see. I forget. It's a 3-part series, so he goes farther into it with that. Cool. 2 from Steve Gordon, or no, I think I'm done with my 2. No, I'm not done with my series. So here's one where he talks about taking care and registering dependencies, and this is something that Damien, you and David pointed out as an issue in your NDC talk. That's about difficult or just being aware that you don't elevate your scope, right? So you're thinking you're registering a singleton, but it actually becomes part of application scope.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, it's actually, you can get yourself into real trouble by mixing different lifetimes inadvertently by having a lifetime on a dependency be different to the person it's being injected into. We have a mode in the container you can turn on now that will validate the scopes during container registration, and so it'll actually throw if you do the incorrect thing. We're thinking about turning that on by default in the next version, in the next major version, because it's a breaking change. But yeah, you have to be very careful of that.
Cool. So here's another one. This is kind of a more big picture one, but just his overall description of their journey of moving from .NET Framework to .NET Core.
Nice.
So a lot of kind of lessons learned and all sorts of things on there. So nice, longer read, but worthwhile. On that same theme, this is one from Chad Tolkien, and he's doing a similar one. And this is actually lessons on going into production with ASP.NET Core. So talking about, different things that they learned, some of the challenges they ran into, performance things, just all kinds of great lessons learned. And, he wraps up with, should you use it? And he says, broadly speaking, yes, so it's generally positive, but, a lot of kind of trade-offs on things that they learned. Here is a nice one from John. He's talking about enabling SSO for discourse with Identity Server 3. So the idea is Identity Server 3 it's pluggable, so you can extend it to allow logging in with different things. Discourse, discussion framework, supports a few different kinds of login interfaces, didn't support OpenID Connect. And so rather than try and hack around in Discourse, what he did is he used the extensibility features in Identity Server 3 in order to work with Discourse. So nice to be able to, single sign on, you've got your Discourse user and to work with it with Identity Server 3 and then any ASP.NET Core applications. So nice there. So this one is from, I forget your name, sir. Fabian, I believe. It is Fabian. So Fabian writing about differences between ASP.NET, or excuse me, Add MVC and Add MVC Core. So we've seen a few from these over time, but he kind of goes through and, in more detail explains what's different between them. So the kind of lightweight Add MVC Core versus the heavier weight Add MVC, which gives you all the other kind of webby sort of things there. This is one, Scott, that you sent me. This is .netify, and this is an interesting framework. This is using this is ASP.NET Core. He's using SignalR and Knockout to kind of build a whole framework that's MVVM based.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, pretty cool. And so this is source code. This is out on GitHub. You can see very regularly updated. There's a lot going on with that. So pretty cool thing. Another cool project thing that's up there recently. This is from Damian Bowden. Tons of great stuff from him over time. And so here he's got a sample project. This is ASP.NET Core with Identity Server 4, Angular, and Visual Studio 2017. So just kind of putting all the parts together and getting Identity and Angular and everything working together.
Is that a sample app or is that a template?
This is a sample app.
I think it's going to be really cool as people start to learn how to make templates.
Yeah.
To figure out how to go, I'd like to have like .NET New, Steve Sanderson's preferred way of doing things.
Well, we actually have that for spa services, which I'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah, but
we do.
More,
no, I agree,
that,
but we should make sure we actually spend more than 3 seconds talking about what you just said today.
Yeah, I did a little blog post about templates, but it'd be cool to have like Syed come on and show us how to make one.
Yeah,
blog post, yeah.
Cool. So this is from Tien, and he's got this simple commerce project, and he explains the things that they did in upgrading from Project JSON to CS Project. So explaining, one package that he had an incorrect reference, and but generally kind of the flow of how they updated it. Cool. This is Steve Desmond, and he's talking about .NET Core overall on ARM, but he calls out some things with ASP.NET Core and Kestrel support and libuv and all that too.
Well, yeah, so just to give that a little more gravitas that it probably deserves, this is the beginning of .NET Core on ARM builds being available specifically for .NET Core, for Ubuntu on Raspberry Pi. So the community has
not
done
Raspbian?
Not Raspbian. So this is a whole a bunch of folks from the community, and obviously people internally at Microsoft have been working very hard, and the folks from Samsung have been working very hard to get the various parts of .NET Core building on ARM, and getting them not just like have the code in there, but actually having builds get spat out on MyGet and on the various feeds and those type of things. And so that just happened a couple of weeks ago. So that post is kind of highlighting that had occurred, who was involved, some of the edge cases you'll run into once you start getting beyond Hello World. But this is kind of a pivotal moment. We actually now have, if you check in on GitHub to /core-CLR or /corefx, at some point after that, a build will appear that is an Ubuntu ARM build that will run on Raspberry Pi. So it's actually a really, really big deal. These aren't official supported
How
things.
is this related or different from the work that Allende Raheen did on?
Allende actually, he embeds, my understanding is they run his database, what's it called?
RavenDB?
RavenDB.
On .NET Core, and they kind of integrate everything. So rather than you installing .NET Core and putting Raven on top of it, he kind of embeds it all inside of it, and it's like a white box product. So he effectively forked .NET Core, is my understanding, and someone can tell me if I'm wrong. And he embeds it, and so he did his own work to get it running on ARM on a Raspberry Pi. And I don't know whether he we already build libuv and ship it as a NuGet package, including an ARM version assembly. So like Kestrel in theory already works on ARM. The issue was always getting a redist and a build of the .NET Core runtime and base class library itself, not the rest of the stuff. So
one of the things that's going to be interesting for the community to get used to as we go forward is this idea that there's going to be more than one way to do something.
Yeah.
And they're totally valid and reasonable. I think that we've talked about this in the past over the last 15 years of .NET, that there's a group of people who want it to all be Visual Studio and just file a new project, and if it's blessed by Microsoft, great. And then there's another whole group of people who want the exact opposite, using, you've done that great slide about how do you like your steak. And some people like it well done, it's safe, it works great, you buy it, you're not going to die. Other people want to do it raw and do something different. So we are getting to a place where both things are equally and totally valid, but for a lot of people, it's going to be confusing.
Yeah,
because there's simply choice.
And I will say that's actually a key part of product design on our behalf, in the sense of that balance between making the platform flexible enough to allow you to do things that may not be on the official path of things, while also making that official path a really nice experience for the customers who just want to stay on the well done sort of path. That is a constant battle and trade-off that we make, because in reality, the purest thing that we could do, in the sense of making this thing as mainline and as with the least amount of flexibility as possible, would be to do it more like .NET Framework. Like you download an installer, it creates a folder on your hard drive with like 1,000 DLLs, and that's it. Like you don't get packages, you don't get any type of composition, you just reference a framework that has everything that we have in it. Now, and if you wanted to do anything custom, you would be forced to go to GitHub and clone stuff. And like that would be the only way to do anything custom. We have tried to build a middle ground whereby there's a nice mainline experience, which is a combination of a shared framework and a set of packages. And then we try and ensure that the package acquisition experience for things that we build and that we ship in the box is as seamless and non-packagey as possible, while still maintaining enough of the mechanics of packages such that you can be more flexible. So you can upgrade, you can point your feed at a MyGet feed and get a daily build, or you can point it at a custom feed, or your local machine if you have cloned the MVC, made a change and built it. Like we need maintaining that flexibility, and the trade-offs is something we constantly battle with, to be frank. Like it's not easy. It's something we have to make conscious decisions on, and sometimes we get it wrong, and we're going to be making changes in the next version that we think pulls it back in a certain direction that makes it a little bit better for everyone involved. So
cool. All right. And I'm in the .NET Core running everywhere, so this was on ARM. This is a cool one, and this is from, pardon me while I scroll to the bottom, I forget, Dustin, I believe. So he's writing about functional ASP.NET Core. This is F# based ASP.NET Core. And so he's announcing a new thing called Lambda, and he explains in detail, the history, where we are, why he thinks that, why it's important to both have functional ASP.NET Core, and also why Lambda is a good, why he did that. So pretty cool. And he goes through and shows some sample code and explains kind of how he implemented it. So nice, very interesting read.
That's great, because when people ask us about F# and ASP.NET Core and MVC, my answer has always been, you don't want us writing the idiomatic F# MVC, because I'm not an F# person. And I've always kind of said I would love for the community, the people who really live and breathe this style of programming, to take the lead in what it means to build a functional web framework on top of ASP.NET Core or .NET Core. And I'm actually starting to see that happen now, which is wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very cool. So I'm definitely planning on digging into this deeper, but really interesting read to see how we kind of went about it. And then speaking of Lambda, here's a different Lambda. This is ASP.NET Core running on Amazon Lambda. So this is from Norm, and this is kind of announcing that it's possible. And then there was another post I saw in Hacker News where Sumit went in and went in and did some perf studies and showed perf with a web API or an API using ASP.NET Core running on Amazon Lambda, and he's getting great perf numbers on it. So very cool. All right, got several posts from the web dev blog. So here's one. This is summarizing the updates for web tools with the latest Visual Studio 2017 RC.
Nice.
Yep. We also have, this is the ASP.NET documentation now on docs.microsoft.com. So we had the ASP.NET Core documentation. This is announcing that the ASP.NET documentation that's been on the ASP.NET website, that is also out there.
Yeah, so effectively we're moving all the docs to docs.microsoft.com, and www.asp.net as a website will become more of a product landing page, I guess you would say. And then, but actual docs and articles will always end up redirecting over to the doc site.
Yep. And one cool side effect of this is that you can contribute, you can correct things in all the docs on GitHub. So that's all available to you there. Yep. Okay, and this is a long, meaty post by Steve Sanderson about you mentioned that JavaScript services earlier. So in a lot of detail, I love JavaScript services, what he's doing there. And so he explains how to get started, how to install it, how it works with the .NET new templates.
Yep, and the reason he wrote that post now is because we finally released it. And so it actually went 1.0 or 1.1, I think is actually the package, but it RTM'd. And so I asked him to do this post now that we've actually hit sort of the
meaning Steve stuff.
It meaning, well, yeah, the stuff that
JavaScript
Steve
services.
I mean, but to be very clear, this is not Steve's package. This is by the ASP.NET Core team, supported by the ASP.NET Core team. Steve works for ASP.NET Core, which is why he built them. He was the developer.
So Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.SPA templates.
That SPA templates is the SPA templates portion of the wider set of functionality called JavaScript services. And so the runtime components are called .SPA services, and the templates, as you mentioned, bring in the CLI templates. There's also some Yeoman templates. There is also a V6 to get Visual Studio templates. And then the underlying functionality is provided by a package called Node services, which is what allows us to run JavaScript on the server from ASP.NET Core. And then all those things come together in a lovely big ball to build this experience that right now, I think it's fair to say, is targeted at developers who are already somewhat familiar with building SPAs, using frameworks like Angular and React, but want to get the best out of using ASP.NET Core on the server with one of these client-side frameworks, and sort of getting the best worlds of server-side rendering, server-side functionality with client-side rendering and client-side functionality, including build tools like Webpack and those type of things as well.
Yeah.
When you type .NET new install, what is the colon?
I don't know, actually. I don't know what that means.
And where is that coming from? NuGet?
I think if you don't provide anything else, it just assumes it's a NuGet package, and so it will use whatever your global feed, configuration is.
ASP.NET Core SPA templates was published today and is a NuGet package. Right?
Yes.
And the colon star, you're saying you don't know what that is?
Well, there's
I'm guessing it's a version.
So my guess was that it would pull in sub packages, but
no. I'm guessing the notation there is that my understanding is the -- install command right now requires you to provide a flat something for the version. Like you can't just put the name in it or get the latest. I'm guessing that notation basically says, please give me the latest version. Oh, Steve's actually watching and he's pinging me right now. He says the star. This is what being live is so good for. He says, yeah, the star is the package version. I'm not quite sure why they're using double colon as the separator. There's probably a reason for that. But yes, the star represents the package version. It'll just go get the highest one in that case.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, and as you pointed out, some of the things he does here is configure Webpack, set up hot module reloading, configure efficient production builds. These are all these things where you can spend you can spend dev weeks, coming up, like cooking all this stuff so it all works well together. So it's nice to have Steve have gone heads down on this for a long time and configure it the right way. So,
yeah, and it wasn't just Steve. Steve's had a community. He's been building this in a repo.
Steve and team. Yep.
Steve and team, but the community, he's had a small circle of community members who have been using the builds as he's been working on this over the prior year, basically. And we've gotten to a point now where we think it's pretty solid. People are using it successfully. We can build stable documentation for it. We've got templates, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But as I said, I don't go into this thinking that this is the new drag drop, I build an app and it's all Sparified for me under the covers. No, it's intended that you're still writing an Angular app and you know what you're doing, and or you're committed to learning how to do that. But this is really about building a great integrated experience between ASP.NET Core on the server and Angular or React or Knockout or Aurelia or whatever on the client.
Yep, cool. All right, just a few more left. So here, Scott, this is something you pointed out, this landing hub. So this is help in migrating to .NET Core. This is get help in migrating your .NET Core project to Visual Studio 2017.
And this is legit, like they're serious. They'll call you and hang out with you on the phone.
So this is the product team and they will help you update your project. Cool. All right, 2 remaining things. So these are upcoming events. One is I've called out a lot of stuff from the ASP.NET Monsters. So they have some training event coming up. They have training events in the future. So these are courses that are coming up. So definitely a good place to learn. And finally, we've got Orchard Harvest. So this is coming up February 21st and 22nd, very soon. But I talked to Sebastian about this today. There's still space available for it. It's in New York City. And there's some really cool presentations here I just want to call out. One is we've got Taylor Mullen talking about what's new in MVC for Core 2.0. Of course,
talking about Razor pages as well.
Exciting.
My favorite thing.
Yep.
Yes.
And then we've got Bertrand talking about what's new in .NET Core 2.0 and C# 7. And of course, tons of great Orchard content, a keynote by Sebastian. So, definitely some great stuff there. All right, how'd I do?
Are you finished?
I'm done.
I give you it's solid, adequate.
Room for improvement. Nice managerial skills there.
You know what I'm going to do next time is I'm going to have one link and I'm just going to nail it. I'm just going to memorize.
Focus. Don't spread yourself so thin.
It's the same thing every time. I asked on Slack. I asked around. And I'm like, what? And I cut several of them. That I'm like, well, this is okay, but we've been through this. This is some great stuff. The community's going nuts.
Not enough butter on too much bread. It's going on your permanent record. Good job. We are standing on the shoulders of giants, and those giants are Steve Sanderson and team.
Indeed, indeed.
Magical. Cool.
So yeah, it's been a while since. It's been 4 weeks since we met. 3 or 4 weeks.
I got back from South Africa the day before yesterday. I keep falling asleep on the floor.
How was Africa? How was showing it in a less connected part of the world than ours? I guess.
So it depends, right? The simplistic white American thing is to go, oh well, there's less connectivity there than there is here.
Right.
That is simplistic and wrong. Right. It just depends.
Right.
If you go to a business in the city and you hang out, they've got 10 megabits up down. You do have to deal with latency though. It's less about bandwidth, I'm finding, and more about latency.
Sure.
It's 200 milliseconds speed of light to Europe, and it's 300 milliseconds to US, and that's just how the speed of light works. So if you're going to write an application over there that you want to be awesome, you got to think about, well, which is the closest Azure and what edge-based CDN could you use locally? So you could have your CSS and your images and your JavaScript, in a local South African or Kenyan CDN, but then you still got to deal with latency. So SPA issues would be complicated to think about. So
does the Azure CDN have POPs in? Oh, it does have one in Africa. The Akamai one does. I'm just looking right now.
Right. So you could use Akamai. You can use Google for fonts, for jQuery and stuff like that.
Interesting.
But I'm told that most people are used to that. I think that the larger question would be from a mobile perspective, like kind of occasionally connected scenarios. But at the same time, if you drive 50 miles south of here to my brother's farm, he's got, similarly bad connectivity. He's on 4G. There's no There's no way for him to get fiber. There's no way for him to get FiOS. There's no copper to my brother's farm. So the reason that I point out that it's easy for us to assume that this is just, oh yeah, it's Africa. Big continent. Every country's different. Every country has different different challenges based on their local telecom provider.
It's the same way we like to pick on Australia and New Zealand.
It's very similar to New Zealand, but at the same time, like I said, there's Portland, and then there's the rest of Oregon.
There's
and
rural Portland, rural Oregon.
The rest of Oregon has very similar internet as everywhere else. Okay. I would say it's a little bit more expensive there. The thing that I noticed was the most frustrating was NuGet. If you don't have it cached, you're going to wait a minute plus. Yeah. So that was a challenge.
I imagine the same would be the same for any package manager, Maven, NPM.
It was worse. It was worse for NPM because there's just so many things going on. But package management is a challenge. It would be nice to solve that problem once and for all.
We're certainly trying to, at least for the out-of-box experience for 2.0 for the next major version. That's one of the 4 or 5 tenants we have, like we call them tenants, like big rocks, the things that we want to fix all above anything else. Yeah. One of them is that once I have installed .NET Core, once I have acquired and paid the cost of that initial download and install, if I go .NET New Web or .NET New Console and then .NET Run, I shouldn't have to hit the network. Like it should just compile instantly and run. There shouldn't be a period of disk I/O and churning or network I/O and churning. It's like you shouldn't have to pay the package cost until you actually want to go out and get another package. We didn't solve that for 1X. Like we do a bunch of tricks, but we don't really quite achieve that in 1X, but we're going to try and do that for 2.0.
Yeah. Other stuff that I saw that was really amazing, people should take a look at brck.com. Brick. Let me actually share my screen and show you this. This is really cool. So this is a router that they've got that is like a brick.
Ooh, look at this. Yeah.
Okay. So you take this router, let me make it big for y'all, and you throw it out wherever. Doesn't matter where it is, right?
Yep.
You put a couple of SIM cards in the thing. It's got an Arduino compatible GPIO. It's got a ton of expandable storage. And it's solar ready, and it could then give a village or my brother in Newberg, Oregon, access to the internet.
So it's cellular?
It's cellular, LTE or 4G or whatever. Can run for hours and hours. So then it could be downloading movies at night.
Yeah.
And then the whole village gets to watch TV or HD movies or whatever. So it's just like you can make it like a captive portal.
Huh.
Like you do on an airplane, right? Where we all sit on the airplane and we watch shows.
Is this a startup or?
It's a startup. It's done by Eric Hermsman. He is
very cool.
He is White African on Twitter, and he's a legend. He's done TED Talks and stuff. What's great about this idea, though, is that we could theoretically, ship Visual Studio on the thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, it's in a box, right?
Yeah, so like I just did a thing on the how to make an offline. I just literally did this yesterday. How to make an offline installer for VS, right? That could be sitting on a device like this, and then anyone could go and grab VS Code or NPM or Node or whatever. So you could imagine hundreds of these things floating around the infrastructure, and people be able to get stuff. So it's a hyper-local CDN.
Interesting.
If that makes sense.
As well as being an access point, right? Like it's actually an access point, yeah.
Amazing stuff over there. There's a thing called M-Pesa, M-P-E-S-A, which is like SIM-based PayPal. That's how they move money around really easily. It's like Stripe, but Kenya specific. Then I went down to South Africa and hung out down there. Met a bunch of people at a place called the App Factory, which is like internships for young people. It's pretty sweet. A lot of cool stuff happening over there. A lot of startups, a lot of really cool startups, mostly around micropayments. But we had a good time.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. What did I do? So I've been out. I mean, I went to NDC London. I don't think we've even met since I was at NDC London, John.
I don't know.
I don't think we have. Anyway, so I was there with Fowler and John. Did we meet? I don't think we have since then. Anyway, so we did another workshop. And our talks just went live in the last 2 hours.
Oh, cool.
So I just tweeted both Fowler and Mai's talk, and yours will be there somewhere too, John. I'm assuming. I think most of them are live now. So that was good, and obviously we've been working hard trying to finish effectively what is the 1.0 of the tooling, right? And so that's the schedule for that is aligning with Visual Studio 2017. We announced the launch for Visual Studio 2017, and thus RTM will be on March 7th. Currently, people will be using the RC. Now, it's RC4. If you go look at the version number in About, it says RC4, but the branding is, it's just an update to the RC. But so we've had 4 sort of public iterations of that RC. The .NET Core tooling has been churning quite a lot in that we've been consistent. We've been adding lots of or fixing a lot of issues and doing this final sort of push to make the 1.0 MS Build based experience really, really good. We have some really good people in the community who are using it now. I know Nick Craver who's online right now with us from Stack Overflow is using it a lot. He's actually using it beyond even what it's designed for right now. So he's loves the new file format so much that he is using it for his non.NET Core projects as well. So he's using it in his MVC5 projects and things like that, which we haven't done all the work to fully bring back all the features of the web application project or the WAP project type that MVC5 and 4 were originally built on. So things like scaffolding and things don't work, but if you don't need those things, it doesn't mind. So the only things in VS 2017 that will use this new MS Build file format and project system are the .NET Core and .NET Standard project templates. But as Nick has done, you can go in and like edit the project file and reference whatever you like, any NuGet package, target any TFM, and as long as it's .NET and it builds with MS Build, you can pretty much make it work. And then over time we will bring more of the project types onto this new project system and foundation. So as I said, we're finishing that up. There will be a servicing release of .NET Core around the same time. So just like we did the update in December and the one in September before that. So we did like 101, 102, and then we did a 1.1 in November. We'll be doing a 104, I think it is, and a 1.1.1 in roughly the same time in March. So there's a couple of fixes there in various parts of ASP.NET and .NET Core, so that's coming as well. And then we're also starting work on sort of the next wave, or the 2.0 wave, as Hunter has talked a little bit about on podcasts and whatnot in the last month, which is kind of the rest of the year. So the next version after this will be a major version. We'll introduce .NET Standard 2, which we've talked about quite a lot. This is the ability to, we're bringing back thousands of APIs from .NET Framework and Mono into the .NET Standard fold, which we're adding the ability to reference full framework assemblies from .NET Standard 2 assemblies. It's basically delivering on the promise of .NET Standard that we've been trying to do for a while. .NET Core 2 will also come along in that time frame, which will support .NET Standard 2.
Is that kind of like punching through, like you're supporting the standard and then going around it if you need to call it, like p-invoking in the sense of like, here's the standard and then, I need to call that API over there?
No, it's ish. So really the standard really applies to library authors, as in you're writing a class library, whether you push it to NuGet or just reference it from an app or whatever. When you're writing a class library, if you want the code to be portable, that is, you want that assembly that comes out of that project to be loadable on different .NET platforms, whether it be Mono or Unity or Xamarin or .NET Core or .NET Framework, they're all platforms, then you target .NET Standard. Your apps don't target .NET Standard. Apps run on platforms. So apps are Xamarin apps or Unity apps or .NET Framework apps or .NET Core apps. So typically you don't have to punch around anything as an app developer because you're already targeting the platform that you want to run on. It's only when you're running when you have shared code that isn't in an app that you need to make a decision about what am I targeting, and are there cases when I need to actually call a platform API that isn't in the standard, in which case you may have to cross-compile, like target that framework specifically in your library.
But if I'm an app maker and I go and I get a library from somebody and it says it's in a .NET Standard library, do I have assurances that it is, even though it might be cheating? And
no, I mean, you don't. I mean, ultimately, the mechanics that draw all these things together are just convention-based, and or they're configuration-based, I should say. Like when you pull in a package, if you crack open the nutcag and you look in, you turn it into a zip file, crack it open, look at the file layout. There's a lib folder or a ref folder, and then inside that there are folders that represent the TFMs or the target framework monikers, the names of the platforms that it runs on. But the package author is free to put whatever DLL in whatever folder they like. And so they can lie to you. They can build a They can put a .NET Framework DLL in a .NET Standard folder. They shouldn't, but there's nothing that prevents them from doing that if they do it manually. Now, if you use the project system and the tooling, that will never do that for you, right? I mean, it'll always do the right thing, but a lot of people hand author their packages, and they can lie to you, but hopefully they're not. Hopefully people are building good packages. So that was .NET Core 2. ASP.NET Core 2 will be in the same timeline. Mostly, there's a couple of really big things that we're doing for ASP.NET Core 2. Obviously, supporting .NET Core 2 and .NET Standard 2. We're doing the Razor Pages framework, which I've talked about. We're beginning the work on Signaler. It won't ship in 2.0. It'll probably ship in 2.1, which is towards the end of this year. But we're starting that work right now because it's a fairly large effort. We're doing more work on Kestrel. So we're looking at some performance improvements in Kestrel, some low-level things and some sort of big chunky things. To continue investing in Kestrel. We're continuing to invest in making Kestrel, what's the word I'm looking for? Not safer. We want to get to a place we want to get to a place where we're happy to recommend Kestrel as an edge server. Right now, we always tell you to reverse proxy Kestrel behind something like Nginx or IIS.
I see.
But we are continuing to invest and make changes such that we're happy to say you could run Kestrel as an edge server and consider yourself safe if you take the usual precautions. So that's hopefully going to land around this year sometime in the same time frame. And then there are some smaller changes throughout the framework. There are obviously some DI changes for the better. They're not many breaking changes, just general improvements here and there. Some changes in the security middleware. So response compression or response caching, which we shipped in 1.1. We're going to make some further improvements on that. And then some experience things as well. So the tooling obviously will improve. We want to fix a lot of the rough edges with the current experience. So like the NuGet restore that we talked about before, we want to completely avoid that. If I just do file new and I want to run, why should I have to do a restore? And why should I pay any of that cost? So we're trying to fix some things there. There's a bunch of stuff going on. But right now, the immediate goal is to get the .NET Core sort of tooling 1.0 story done, and then immediately move to very quickly standing up the 2.0 story so we can get a preview out of that, out for that as soon as possible. The other things happened. I got my laptop. So I've been talking about new laptop.
Which one did you end up getting?
So this is the Dell Precision 5520. This is the workstation version of the very popular and well-known XPS 15. So the XPS series is quite well known. The XPS 13 and the 15, they have the Infinity Edge borderless, screen, carbon fiber. They're machined aluminum. The whole thing is machined aluminum, top and bottom, and then carbon fiber on top. So it's actually a very solid, well-built machine. It's much better than I thought it would be.
But you were having some problems with it, right?
Yeah, so I was going to get to that once I got through all the good stuff. But thanks, John.
Okay.
Workstation
Let's jump right to the bad.
You said workstation version, meaning it's got 16 gigs of RAM.
It's got 32 gigs of RAM, and it has a
32.
Xeon.
That
has a Xeon,
probably
a
open
Xeon
more
chip.
than one Chrome tab.
So that was I was going to mention. So usually when I was here with my X1 Carbon Ultrabook and doing this call, my CPU would be at 100%. Right, and I would often my mouse would start dragging and stuff. I'm sitting here right now with my 8 cores, well 4 physical and 8 virtual, and I am using a total of 35% CPU. Right
Is this better than my my Surface Book? Because me and Glenn, streamed and Visual Studio'd and Dockered and VM'd happily for 3 hours without any issues on the Surface Book.
Yeah, so basically, as anything in life goes, there are trade-offs associated with putting $3,000 into a machine like this. I wanted a quad core. I really wanted to have extra CPU available to do things like this and not have to make it feel slow. I wanted to be able to do VS and command line and have builds going on and do video streaming and multiple monitors and yada yada yada. You can, and with the Ultrabook that I had, which is 5 years old, that was a real struggle. With the Surface Book, which is obviously much more modern, still an Ultrabook, still Ultrabook class CPUs, but it has a dedicated GPU. It has more RAM than mine did. It has 16 gig, I guess, I think in your case, instead of 8. Has a better hard drive. So there were incremental improvements that made that better. This machine though has a much faster CPU. The Surface Book has a 15-watt CPU part, so it can only draw 15 watts of thermal power at any time. This one has a 45-watt part in it. Which is why it has double the cores and can overclock for a much larger period of time. This thing will overclock to 4 gigahertz on single-threaded workloads and about 3.8 for multi-threaded workloads. It is a beast. It is an absolute beast of a laptop. It has the highest performing Samsung OEM SSD that you can buy in it, the SM961. I have the half terabyte version instead of the terabyte version. Technically, the terabyte version will probably be even faster because you have more chips, but the controller is the same and all the rest of it. 32 gig of RAM, as I said, which is, I think it's 2400 megahertz DDR4 RAM as well, so it's super fast. The screen is just bananas. So the screen is a similar quality to the Surface Book screen, which is widely renowned as having the best monitor on any laptop that you can buy on the planet in terms of color accuracy and brightness and contrast and those type of things. This one is 4K, so it's actually slightly higher resolution than the one in the Surface Book. Plus, it's a touchscreen, so I love it. It just basically is everything I wanted. And it has a Thunderbolt port, and I have a Thunderbolt dock that I bought with the laptop.
What do you use that for, though?
I drive 2 external 4K monitors and the internal 4K panel through that dock. So I don't use a desktop anymore at work.
Did you need to buy a fancy monitor?
What do you mean?
Well, like I've got I just bought a 1070 NVIDIA. That's my big outlay.
Your video card, right? Yep.
And I needed to get a bunch of adapters because it has only like display ports. So I need to get like an active display port to HDMI adapter and an active display port to VGA adapter because I have a bunch of old monitors that I don't want to give up.
Yep. So
Did you buy new monitors too?
I bought new monitor. I bought 4K monitors. So I had 3 1200p monitors, 1920 by 1200, 24-inch, and then a 27-inch 1080p touchscreen on my desk. That was the 4-monitor setup I had. I have replaced that with a dock that this thing plugs into, which uses Thunderbolt 3, and 2 27-inch 4K monitors. So I have more pixels than I had before, and it's much higher quality, and it's one machine. And I just unplug. That single cable gives me power, network, the 2 external monitors, all my USB peripherals, keyboard, Bluetooth, all that stuff with a single cable, a Thunderbolt 3 cable. It is the dream. Like, it's really, really, really nice.
I don't get this stuff anymore. I'm officially old.
You tapped out of tech now. You're not a hardware
No, well, it's
anymore?
like I think it all fell apart for me when hard drives stopped looking like hard drives.
Oh, get off my lawn, will you? Come on.
No, I just remember when me and Atwood built my big computer? I get that. You put cards into slots.
You still do that with desktops. What are you talking about?
No, you don't, because the hard drive's like actually a little chip.
What's wrong with that? So it's still, you still plug it in.
So now you're telling me that you're like hooking up like a whole stock array of like 3x3 monitors with a single cable.
Yeah,
and it's a single cable that I couldn't recognize. Like, does it look like a mini TV or is Thunderbolt?
No, it's a USB-C cable.
I don't get it. It's impossible.
But what? So if you want to live in your old world, if you want to live in your old world of 14 different cable types.
So hang on a second. So that's this thing, right? That's this.
You got vacuum tubes under your desk.
Hang on. This is a USB. Hang on, let me click here.
USB-C.
That's Thunderbolt?
No. So
What's
Thunderbolt is the protocol that USB-C, you can do many different protocols over that one connector type. So USB-C is the connector standard, is the plug.
So you can run monitors off that?
Yes, using what's called DisplayPort alternative mode. Yes, because Thunderbolt 3 and that cable type, you can deliver 120 odd watts of power through that cable while also simultaneously transferring 40 gigabits of data. Right? Over the one cable. That's why that cable is the one cable to end them all right now.
But we're not in that place, right? Like hubs and parts, and you still need adapters and dongles and stuff.
No, I have not. No, that's what I'm saying. Like my dock, my hub, my little hub, my dock is a Thunderbolt dock. It's a Dell Thunderbolt dock that is designed to work with this computer.
Thunderbolt dock.
Thunderbolt 16, TB16 dock.
There it is. I'm looking.
And then it has DisplayPort connectors on the back, so I can plug it in.
It has 2 stars on Amazon.
The TB15 was horrible. They withdrew it from market. The TB16 is the replacement.
Okay, so it looks like a little square.
Yes.
And one end of it's USB.
One end of it is Thunderbolt 3 over a USB-C connector.
3 FHD displays. What is an FHD?
Full HD or 2 4K displays, which is what I'm running.
So FHD is 1080p. That's what I'm using.
Yep. And then UHD is Ultra HD is 4K. So I'm doing 2.
What is this?
And you're doing a Quad HD, like the higher one.
Yeah, I don't know.
The 30-inch one.
1600 by 1200. That's the one I bought from Brad.
And as Nick said
years ago.
As Nick said, it's basically a PCI Express extension cable. Think about Thunderbolt 3 that way. That's basically the bandwidth.
So okay, so then the day of like the custom ThinkPad, Lenovo proprietary dock, all the docks
is over.
The dock nightmare of the last 20 years.
So if you have looked at the latest ThinkPads that just got announced, they're all Thunderbolt 3 dock connectors.
Did you have to install any crap to get it to work, or is it all standard now?
No, there is a Thunderbolt management suite that comes from Dell.
Okay.
That manages the devices. And there's a couple of reasons why. One, the dock is smart. It has a fan, it has firmware. Thunderbolt has USB-C has a negotiation phase so that when you plug devices into each other, they can talk to each other to determine what the hell they're going to, what protocol they're going to talk about. Secondly, because it is effectively a DMA architecture, so you get direct memory access to the other side, there's a security aspect to it. So when you plug a new device in, it says, hey, you just plugged a new device in. Do you want it to connect? Do you want what do you want it to connect as?
It almost seems like a little Bluetoothy in a sense of there's a negotiation and how do you want me to treat this thing?
But that's what makes it flexible, right?
So I'm looking at this and it says HDMI, VGA, mini display port, USB 2, 3, speakers.
Yep.
Bunch of stuff.
I do all of that. So I have my desktop speakers with my subwoofer.
One wire.
With a single wire that plugs in here.
And you had to buy a custom monitor though. What if I didn't want to buy?
No, I didn't have to buy a custom monitor. I just wanted to buy new monitors because I wanted 4K. I wanted high resolution.
You're throwing money, right?
I was throwing money at it. I may as well throw another $800 to get 2 4K.
Is that like 5,000 by 3,000 or something?
No, 4K is the same as your TV. 3840 by 1920
something. Yeah.
It's 4 times full HD.
3840 by 2160. It's the 2160 I need to get used to in my head.
Yeah, so it's basically 4 times 1080p. It's 4 1080p panels arranged in a rectangle.
Sweet Christmas.
Yes, and so I have on my laptop, which is also 4K, I run at 200% scale, and the 2 external monitors run at 150% scale.
And you do the whole. And now you're using Creators Update, or what version of Windows are you on?
No, I'm on public, so I'm not even. I don't even have the good.
So you're going to feel great when the new stuff comes out because
it does scaling even better.
Like only on one old Win32 app that I have to right click and go properties, and there's a new option for scaling.
Yep.
But most things look nice, and Visual Studio, each version's getting better and better.
It's getting better and better. Yeah. So Office looks good. The browsers look good. VS looks okay. Like, I mean, the Office and VS look fine simply because there are so many pixels, even if it is scaling internally. But with the Creators Update, it'll get better again.
So other than my HTC Vive, which is now my John Wick simulator.
Oh my God. Have you seen the new movie yet? I'm going on Friday.
Dude, I've got the game. I don't need the movie. I'm living the dream with the John Wick. It's a game now. It's a Vive. Really? It's room scale John Wick. Are you joking?
Really?
Oh my goodness, dude. So now you need a new laptop.
No, I can do VR on this laptop if I want to, but I don't want to do VR.
Could you?
No, the video card on here is actually a workstation class, not a gaming class. It's a Quadro M1200 because, again, it's all about how many watts. So a VR class consumer video card takes a lot more than 45 watts, which is what this one, the part in here does, the GPU. And so like a 1060 is what's considered, GTX 1060 is kind of the minimum to do VR. And that's more than 40 watts. So
dude,
that's pretty damn cool.
Look at this. Look at that. Remember
this
guy?
Actually been playing
Remember this guy?
I know him. Yeah.
That's the guy from the thing.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a John Wick simulator. I bought it.
Amazing.
Yeah. It's good. All right,
Anyway, so yeah, I finally got my laptop. And so to John's point, the only problem I've had so far is the spacebar is terrible. And so, like, like you push it down, it doesn't register half the time. So I rang them today, and they're sending me a replacement laptop. So because it's within the first 30 days,
so
if you have any,
get there, you're going to get another one.
I'm getting a brand new one, and then I will send this one back when the new one turns up.
That is scandalous.
Which is pretty good. Like, rather than having a technician come out, and I bought like the 3 years.
What's wrong with it again?
The space bar, like, it just doesn't register. If you touch type, the space bar, when you hit it with your thumb, it'll go down, but it doesn't actually register. So you have to like concentrate and push it right in the middle, which when you're writing tweets, you can kind of live without spaces. But when you're writing code, the code doesn't compile when my spacebar doesn't work.
And now because you spent so much money, they drive a guy over, right? And he comes in.
Well, so I had 2 choices. Because I'm within the return period, I could have the technician come out, which I could do for 3 years, or they can just send me a brand new laptop. So they've already shipped me one. It'll be here in a week, and then I'll put this one in a box and send it back. And
how big is the hard drive?
I got the 0.5 terabyte.
It's SSD.
Yeah. Oh, PCI Express, the fastest.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know.
And the thing weighs, someone asked how much it weighs, is 4.4 pounds.
I like my Surface Book.
As I've said to people ask me, I did a whole tweet rant on this last night, public information last night. If you want a faster CPU, you can't, the Surface Book doesn't have a SKU. No Ultrabook has a SKU that will do more than a U series dual core chip. So if you want a better CPU, I have a Xeon in this, for crying out loud, then you need to go to a workstation class or something like an XPS 15. And to get that, I get about 6 hours of battery life out of this, so I'm pretty happy. It's like 3 times more than I was getting out of the stupid X1. And for my, I have a power supply on my kitchen bench, like on my island bench. So I just sit down and I work there, and then I come in.
It's mostly, so is it Ultrabook sized, or it's between Ultrabook and the old?
So it is
T500.
It's between. So I think I had a picture where I put it next to the Carbon, and it is slightly bigger because it's the Infinity Edge display. It has no bezel, right?
Right.
It is slightly heavier. So like a model. Let's be fair. I bought my wife an Ultrabook for Christmas, so she has a brand new HP Spectre X360. Highly recommended. If you want an Ultrabook, you don't need anything more than a dual core. You can live with 16 gig of RAM and a terabyte of PCI Express, and you can 1080p or 4K. It has both. And you want something that's under £3, buy that laptop. It is fantastic. If you want more than an Ultrabook, if you want more power, buy this laptop. That is my recommendation right now.
But that's a lot of money, man. My wife has got an X1 Carbon from three versions ago, and she likes it fine.
But what's a lot of money? Which one? The second option. The first option, the Spectre, was under $1,000.
There you go. I can deal with that.
That's what I'm saying. And it is an amazing laptop. I mean, it is like a fantastic Ultrabook that I could have got away with, but this is a 3-year investment, and I wanted a much more powerful CPU.
The point that you made there that I think is the most important thing is that as people are listening to us talk about our first world problem of these expensive laptops, when you say it's a 3-year investment, you can go and do the math, right? It's $3 a day.
Yes.
Next 3 years. That's why I always say get an SSD, right? Just buy the SSD.
Oh, that's a no-brainer. Like SSDs.
But there's people out there whose laptops I can hear.
I don't even speak to those people now. I say get an SSD, then come back and talk to me.
Damien, someone asked if you can take a picture of your workstation setup with the monitors and stuff.
I already put it on Twitter multiple times. In fact, I retweeted it already today, but I'll do it yet again. I will do it again. So yeah, I am very happy. And so just to give you a comparison, like on build times, like and what actually make a difference it makes, I compared it to Fowler's. He has the MacBook Pro prior to the current one, which is ridiculous. The one before the touch bar. That's my daughter. There it is. Yep. So that's me plugging in with my one cable with my external keyboard and my new monitors and all the rest of it.
There's not enough stuff on your desk. It's making me uncomfortable.
That's because I got rid of it all because I don't need it anymore.
What is that thing?
That's a little cable caddy.
And what is this over here?
That's power.
That's the power for all this?
No, that's the power for my mobile phone. That's a cable that's under the. Although I got rid of that because the dock itself has an extra USB-C cable, so now I charge the phone from that.
Now,
so I don't even need that
which
anymore.
thing here did you buy, and which did the company buy?
I bought all of it, and the company didn't buy any of this.
This is your house?
No, this is my work.
Okay, so you bought these monitors and brought them.
I bought the monitors. I bought the laptop, the keyboard. I bought the keyboard. I bought the mouse. I bought the speakers. I bought all of it. I don't rely on other people
for none of this. Where's your company laptop at?
I don't have one. It's in a drawer underneath that table.
It's in a drawer. That's how bad my.
I have a MacBook in a drawer, and I have the Carbon one, the Carbon X1 in a drawer.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because my company laptop is in a drawer right here.
Yeah, my drawers are where laptops go to die.
Yeah, my laptop is not even. I mean, like, it hasn't even. It actually says Scott Domain Join Backup Machine. I care not about this laptop. I should probably turn. The battery's dead, so yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I am a hardware geek. I don't rely on other people to buy the hardware that I want. So I buy the hardware that I want myself.
You are a pip.
Yeah. A pip?
Amazing.
What's a pip?
It's like saying ta, right? It's one of those things.
Your callback doesn't work.
Like Gladys Knight and the. You're a pip. You're a gem of an individual. You're a great person. You're a gem among men and women. You're a pip.
Dear.
No?
Okay, I'll take the compliment. I'll take it as a compliment. I think it was intended as one.
Ta.
Indeed, ta. Ta. So it's the end of the road. I have finally got my new laptop, and I'm happy. No doubt the Surface Book 3 will come out and have a quad core, and then I'll cry.
Oh yeah, you will. You're going to regret everything that you just told me.
I will eat my hat if the Surface
What
Book
I need
4
to learn about
core.
though is this Thunderbolt thing that everyone's talking about. Because I'm sick of 15 different docks. I've got a Surface dock and I've got a Lenovo dock. I got different plugs with different voltages. I just want to plug the USB thing in, and I want the world where USB A, B, C, D, F goes to die. There's one USB, and one power adapter for all of us. And I want to make it, and I want my lightning connector to die as well.
Yeah, that is. I mean, USB-C and Thunderbolt is the thing that is the only thing that possibly could deliver on that so far. So
good.
So far it's working pretty well.
I just realized I need to take all of my crappy old. You ever do this where it's like, it's time to run Windows Update on all your crappy laptops that you have around the house. Let's get them all working together. All right, I gotta go make dinner for the kids.
Oh, okay. Well, awesome.
Do we have more to talk about?
No. I was just, maybe people had questions, but you have to go make it.
Honestly, we've been going for over an hour, and it's time.
It's been a while.
Cool. Sorry.
Not a problem at all.
People who do not want my children to eat.
Engaging. Zoom.
Are we doing the Zoom now? Okay, let's do the Zoom.
This
is going to be higher quality Zoom because it has Xenon now.
Xenon gas.
Xenon-based Zoom.
There it is. Okay. Look how smooth that is.
Yeah,
and that's it.
That's really great. Quite a short focal zoom there.
What I usually do is I zoom all the way in first, like this.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Get a close, tight shot.
That's disturbing.
And then I go, goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.
You've got a laptop. It's so fancy.
I have a Xeon. Your argument is invalid.
Bye.